Good morning and welcome to the third day of Interact Global, the free virtual edition of Nomensa's Interact conference. Today's talks are about user experience and design. Hello, if it's your first session, or welcome back if you have been watching sessions over the last 2 days. Yesterday, we closed the day with the fantastic sessions from Dan Brown, the art of science, asking questions. If you haven't been able to join the session, you will find it on YouTube channel later in the week. Before we start, please do get involved and say hello to each other in the chat. Make sure you switch your chat settings to panelists and attendees so everyone can see your messages. And do let us know if there are any audio issues or issues with the stream, and we'll try to get things fixed as soon as possible for you. We are also using auto-generated captions for this session. Some of these may not be 100% accurate. However, when we share the talks publicly on our YouTube channel, we'll ensure the transcripts are accurate. Now we're really excited for our first talk of this morning. This talk is about bridging the gap between academia and industry from Rui Couto, product designer at OutSystems and a former senior researcher at Minho University. In this talk, Rui focuses on a success story that bridged the gap between academia and the software industry by aligning different interests within a project. Rui will take you through how he managed to align his academia research with real-world usage data and how the outcomes have been translated into features. A single research project managed to unlock future collaborative research, which brings value for everyone. So please do ask a lot of questions using the Q&A box. I will ask these to Rui at the end, and we'll try to get through as many as we can. So without any further ado, I'll hand over to Rui to begin. Thank you very much and enjoy.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation for being here. I was talking about how to bridge this gap between academia and industry, and about these two worlds. As Manuel said, my name is Couto, and I'm currently a product designer on the user experience group at OutSystems. And I'm a former senior researcher. I have a PhD in software engineering. Okay, and why am I talking about my background? Well, because of two things. First, for you to understand that I've been in these two different worlds. And second, because I'm a software engineering, I'm doing user experience, and how does that happen? So as a senior researcher, I used to do fundamental research on critical interactive systems. That was kind of coupled with the user experience, but it's fairly more fundamental. Of course, now I know that I had a biased vision on the industry. Okay, I had a clear idea of what the industry is, and I now know that it's not accurate for sure. While at the academia, I had the chance to conduct a research project in collaboration with OutSystems. And that has opened the door for the collaboration with industry. That was I would say the changing factor. What was the main positive outcome is that we saw that our work as researchers was being valued by OutSystems, and OutSystems had their work validated through research. Okay, and that was a change in our mindset, because we know, okay, now we know that academia can be actually of value to organizations, and that organizations sometimes actually care and are willing to do this kind of fundamental research. Now I'm a product designer. It's a kind of a different role, but that has happened because I understood, okay, I can be of value. And not only that, but I find that my background, despite being software engineering, was very valuable as a UX designer. And not only that, but I still conduct research, applied research, and that allows me to have a clear vision on these two worlds. So what will I be talking on this session? So first of all, I will talk a little bit about the two kinds of research that are done in the industry and then academia. I will talk about how this contributes to this biased vision on both parts. Not only that, but demystify that bias. Okay, how similar actually are those two worlds? What makes a research project successful, and why moving from research to academia? So starting with the fundamental research. Well, this is the main kind of research that is done in the academia. Okay, so what's the idea here? It has a strong emphasis on theory and on the scientific method, and on producing scientific contribution. Okay, and through that research, the main outputs are publications, which is the validation of the performed work. As an example, for instance, working on formal methods, the thing that I used to work, and the scientific contribution can be, for instance, a validation tool or framework. And I used to work on those areas, HTI, critical iterative systems, and formal methods, and that led us to write some publications. On the other hand, we have the applied research, which is the main kind of research that is done in the industry, that has a very different input and output. So here the focus is on outcomes. It has to concern about users and the market, and of course it has to take into account a product that needs to be put in the market. And through these techniques that you are most probably aware, design thinking, defining use cases, problems, and having market awareness, the main output is to produce value as a product. Okay, in this case, producing value for OutSystems as a product. So, as you might expect, these are two very different visions of the same approach to a problem. Okay, these are two very distinct ways to do research. And of course, this leads to biased visions, okay? And this is what, in my opinion, leads to having a negative bias towards each part. So how did I, well, part of academia, used to see industry? Okay, industry doesn't care about research. Okay, they don't do publications. They only focus on money. Okay, they just want to have their products. They want to sell their products. They don't want to validate that. They don't want to publish. They care about product and selling. And also they see academia as outsourcing. Okay, they have some kind of project, they don't want to do it, they outsource it to academia. And that was my biased vision. Now I know that is not true. On the other hand, this is how industry sometimes tends to see the academia. So the academia, they just want to do some fundamental work. They don't do quote unquote useful work. They just do the fundamental research. They care about theory. They care about all those things, but not producing outputs as value for a product. They have a strong emphasis on theory. They don't care about, I would say, building things, about delivering features. Okay, they focus on theory. They don't have market awareness. They are kind of isolated on that context. They don't know what the market wants, what the market does. So why should the industry outsource or collaborate in a project with academia if they don't know what the market is, if they are unable to produce value? Okay, and that is my opinion on how biased these visions are. However, I would say that is kind of wrong, and that there is fairly more similarities than differences between these two worlds. On top, you have our design thinking process at OutSystems, which is a fairly common one, just fine-tuned to our needs. And you can see that it's composed of 4 stages. It has the problem definition, solution design, solution delivery, and then rollout and tuning. And at the bottom, you can see how I used to do research. So starting with stage 1, here at OutSystems, while applying our research, our design thinking process, during the problem definition stage on the left, we do our research, we do ideation, framing. What did I do while at the academia? On the first stage of a project, I would write a proposal, I will perform some extensive research, and that is kind of similar. Then on a second stage, also on the design thinking, we do the solution design, where we test our concepts, we do mock-ups and so on. Here at the bottom, and representing the academia, we collaborated in projects, we developed prototypes. Okay, so again, fairly similar. On stage 3, solution delivery, is where we currently design, review, test, and deliver. At academia is where you use to review and publish the results. And finally, on rollout and tuning, is where we currently look at the features and look at metrics to understand the improvements that we can make. While a researcher, this is where we look at feedback on our work, where I'll find the new research areas and look for feedback to feed new proposals. So as you can see, there's a lot of similarities. Actually, this stage is going to be mapped one-on-one, and I would say that is a very interesting output, and one of the things that that allowed me to jump between these two worlds. The project that, in my opinion, illustrated that very well was a Learnability project. That was a collaboration project between OutSystems and the University of Minho. It was a project where we looked at how first-time users learn and understood the OutSystems tools. And in this project, of course, it was a close collaboration between the university and OutSystems. In the first stage, while I've done this project as a researcher, okay, not as a product designer. And on the first stage, we had a project proposal that we had to write. We had to understand the goals and the context of the project. Then on the stage that maps to solution design is where we did the interviews, usability testing. We looked through large data sets to understand what users were doing and analyze the results. On stage 3 of solution delivery is where we write the reports and papers to summarize the work that was done. And finally, rollout and tuning was a process done offline, just on the university, to process the feedback and define new research areas and further stages for this project. So as you can see, despite being a project, despite Learnability being the project proposed by OutSystems, it mapped to the solution design, to design thinking process very well. And it was done in these stages at the university that mapped to design thinking process. Again, I would say very similarly stages. So given all these differences, given this context, given that OutSystems has a focus on the product and the academia has a focus on research, what actually allowed this Learnability project to be successful? Well, these are my personal opinions, okay? And I would say that, first of all, it was a topic that was relevant to both parties, okay? So the scope was user experience, which was, and what it was very deeply connected with the HCI, that was the kind of research that we were doing. So in the one hand, you have HCI, which is a very relevant and active topic at Interactive Systems Group, part of the research laboratory that I was part of. And on the other hand, we have the user experience group, which is one of the key pillars supporting the product here at OutSystems. So we have a topic that was relevant for both parties. Both parties wanted to work on that. Second, we have a clear scope and definition of expectations for this project. So the Learnability project was split into, I would say, two major parts. The research part and part of publication was handled by the university. So it was clear from the beginning that university will guide all the research. And then all the validation of the insights and the usage of the predictive model and then processing of the results was done by OutSystems. So from the beginning, we said, okay, university will handle the research part, OutSystems will handle the productization, if you will, of the project. Third, one of the things that I believe that was key was delegating each part of the project to wherever does it better. So academia excels at research, okay? They don't have the development capacity that that industry has. They don't have the expertise that industry has. They excel at research. That's what academia does for the most part. So delegate research to the academia and say, okay, in the Learnability project, the University of Minho will be responsible for research, not development. On the other hand, the industry excels in development. They have a lot of developers, huge teams, highly specialized teams. So they will handle all that development part that might be required. They will assist whenever it's needed, but they will mostly handle the development part. And that is something that is not true to all projects. It's not true for all the organizations. Sometimes organizations reach the academia with projects that involve development. And in my opinion, that's a mistake because that's not what academia does the best. So going back to the learnability project, first we had a topic that was to understand how new users learn and learn to develop in OutSystems. Okay, the topic was relevant to both parts right from the beginning. Regarding the scope, university would guide the research part to validate scientifically what OutSystems needed, and OutSystems will handle that development and processing of the feedbacks to be included back to the product. And finally, there was a clear collaboration between both parties. As a result, what we achieved was a successful project. It actually had a second part. It was composed of the first part. The second one was mainly because of the success of the first one, and even led to other projects and collaborations. Now, on the learnability project, it had a great emphasis on user experience. Okay, there were three key pillars. There was the classical usability. We need to do the scripts, the observations, usability testing, all of that you know and are well familiar with. Then we had the qualitative studies from questionnaires, ethnographic study, user interviews. We needed to do all of that as well. And finally, the analysis and the systematization of results. So affinity diagrams, opportunity trees, provided feedback for personas. So as you can see, despite being a research done in the context of a university, this actually was very close to user experience. Now, I would like to move to the outcomes, to both parts. Okay, so starting with university, what actually did the University of Minho took from this project? Well, first of all, we were able to have better publications, okay? So since we had the real-world usage data, we were able to write publications with a higher impact because it was actually a real-world use case. We have access to real-world data, and that allows us to say, okay, this is a relevant problem. This is what we were able to see, and we ended up publishing a paper in the High Impact Journal. Also, we had that real-world use cases that had two main outcomes from that. So first of all, of course, better publications because we had better data. And second, we were able to see, okay, there's here a very interesting research topic that we'll address in a while. And of course, ultimately, we achieved better research. And the last one was, I was mentioning, having new research interests. So we find out that there was this area of low-code development platforms that we, as researchers, weren't addressing. And from there, it was actually a research topic that we started working on. On the OutSystems side, of course, first outcome was validating the insights through research, and here through fundamental research, something that would be harder to do on the OutSystems. We, as OutSystems, had more credibility in market and industry because we had validated all the research. We have validated them through scientific research. We have published the results, and that, of course, increases credibility. We also achieved a stronger relationship with the university because these projects were successful and there was willing to collaborate from both parts. And OutSystems was able to have for a limited time a dedicated team of researchers, something that is very, very hard to do if not in collaboration. So from this collaboration, I would say that this was the ultimate result for both parties. We were able to do some research work, validate that with real-world usage data and fundamental research and a better relationship. And I would say that this was beneficial to both parties. This was the summary of what both parties took from this collaboration. Of course, there were also some indirect results. For instance, it led to more research projects. It opened the door for MSc and PhD theses and collaborations. It led to hiring researchers. It motivated more internships, and overall, for OutSystems, allowed for a better product. And now I would like to pass to the second topic of this presentation, which is why moving from university to the industry. So here, what I learned during these projects is that my background actually could be useful to both worlds. Okay, I learned that despite I have a very technical profile, actually the things that I do are things that here. The things that I do in this project are things that I used to do as a researcher. So actually, these transitions is fairly more simple than it looks like. So on the one hand, there are the things that I used to know, for instance, that I know, for instance, giving classes, doing development, doing research, the HCI fundamentals. And then on the other thing, there are the things that I've done in the learnability project. So for instance, usability studies, interviews, writing papers, and most of these things actually intersect and are value for OutSystems. There are values for the organization as organization, as a product, and are things that I know how to do and I like to do. So that was my main motivation for moving. On the retrospective, what actually went well on this project? I would say that approaching the university with a project that is relevant for both parties was key. That was essential for this collaboration. Also, making sure that this project was defined as exploratory from the beginning, not something that would be done and delivered and integrated in the product on the end. That would be a mistake, on my opinion. Related with that, delegating to each part which is part does better. Okay, so delegate research to the academia, not implementation. That might have been. I wouldn't say that would be a mistake, but that probably wouldn't be as profitable as having it that way. Then another thing that is key is having regular interactions. Okay, and that relates with continuous collaboration. So make sure that the projects are not delivered and go gather the results after a few months. Okay, because probably and do the way that the industry and academia works, that probably wouldn't go well. So some examples of things that went well. So the analysis of usage data from this commercial product was very, very interesting because that was aligned with what both parties want and allowed for a relevant publication. Another thing was that since we were aligned and we actually knew what OutSystems valued as an organization, we aligned our work, for instance, to have some information to classify users according to their profile. That contributed to the personas definition. And the user studies, since we were in a close collaboration during the user studies, we were able to introduce new questions, to ask questions that maybe they weren't related with the project, but they were relevant for OutSystems, and that for sure added value. Of course, some things could have been better. We started the usability testing very soon. We could have done some research on beforehand. That led to some adjustments, but that wasn't a major issue. Just to give you some context, of course, that's again a result from a different mindset. Industry moves very quickly, and academia tends to move slower, and that probably would have been a better approach. Some parts of the project, of course, required more collaboration. That was something that we were fine-tuning as we went. For instance, maybe in the beginning, we needed more interaction to get more context, but then during the analysis phase, academia probably it would be better to work on their own to figure out the details. And finally, these two worlds move at different paces. So we figured that out right from the beginning, which was relevant. So we ended up splitting this project into milestones to accommodate that. So in conclusion, well, we were able to achieve a successful collaboration through projects. Okay, so one project was enough to make sure that things were aligned and keep on collaboration. And I would say that one successful project. Okay, because I believe that if things went wrong, probably there won't be more collaborations. It is essential to align tasks, responsibilities, and expectations from the beginning, and align that with actually each part wants and expects. That I would say it's very, very relevant. It's probably the most relevant thing. So if all in all, if a project is beneficial to both parties, it has the requirements to be successful. And again, referring back to the Learnability project, on the academia side, we ended up with a stronger relationship, real world usage data, and new research areas that we are able to work on, of course, and funding that is very relevant. And on the OutSystems side, we ended up with detailed research on that subject, relationship for future collaboration. And in the end, OutSystems hired some researchers as me to collaborate full-time with them. So I hope that my experience can be of value for you, and that my personal opinion helps you on for future projects and collaborations. And as a conclusion, I would say that these are the main takeaways. Okay, so reach out to universities with topics that are relevant for them, actually for both parties. And here, please take note that not all universities work on all subjects. So if you reach out to one university and they don't have interest of working on that, doesn't mean that the topic is not relevant. Probably it's just that they don't have that research area. Clear, define the scope and understood universities' motivations. They are very different from the industry ones, but they can be aligned, as you saw. Delegate, that's key. Delegate what is right for each part, not what is the most beneficial to just one of the parts. And finally, foster collaboration. Okay, make sure that you have regular interactions, that you align constantly. That is key to make sure that things go well. And that will be all from my side. I don't know if you have any questions.
Thank you for that, Roy. Really useful, insightful presentation. I really liked how you explained combining the two different worlds, come up with a better product at the end, and which is beneficial for the user. So when I was asking or wondering, is it now a standard process at OutSystems that you always work with universities when you develop new systems, new products?
Yeah, it's fairly common. Okay, it's not. I would say that is not a systemized process, but it's fairly common. Okay, it's fairly common for OutSystems to reach out to universities to have that research on your topics. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, I got a question coming in from Bob and asked how much course funding from industry in this is there today.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if I have all the details, but I would say that at least in my research center where I belong to, most of the funding was from research projects, not with industry. Okay, it was from national fundings, from European funding, not from collaboration with the industry. That was fairly less common in my case. Okay.
Okay, and could you also say that within the organization OutSystems, you managed to take all these biases, what the industry thinks about academia, it's been a way, is it that you could convince them that there's really a benefit, or do you think you still on a day-to-day basis you have to work on those to reduce those biases?
I would say it's kind of it's kind of natural. I would say that as people see my collaboration and see that I, despite coming from the academia, I can collaborate, I can contribute. I would say that is something that has faded away pretty quickly. I would say so. Yeah.
I got here a statement from Bob who says the relationship is stronger if funding is shared.
Yeah.
You want to elaborate on that as well.
Yeah, for sure. There were other research projects, not this one with OutSystems, and where that is true, for sure. There was a previous project, not with OutSystems, with another company where there were European funding, and that funding was shared, and for sure that helped on the relationship. For sure, I would agree with that.
And I got a question from Helen coming in. What is it difficult to find a project that was relevant for both parties? Was it difficult to find a project that was relevant for both parties?
Well, here the initiative came from OutSystems. I would say that in my opinion, again, the trick is to find a new university that works on that research area. Because if they had reached us, for instance, I would say with in this specific case of my research center, imagine something like virtual reality or something like that. That was not something that we were working on. So that probably wouldn't go as well. But there are other universities and other research centers that work on that. So I would say that the trick is find a research center that actually works on that, not the other way around.
Okay. And you also mentioned in your presentation quickly, like the different pace between the industry and academia. So is there something else, like before, instead of just having clear goals and the milestones, how to approach this, to overcome these differences?
Yeah, I would say that that's stating that from the beginning and say, okay, this is our delivery cycle. This is the frequency that we do things. That is the way that we break our work. That should be put up front. Okay, so that both parts can say, okay, that's not the way that we work. For instance, here at academia, we need more time. Okay, so let's make a bigger milestone here and a smaller milestone there. So yeah, there are actually some differences on the paces, but they are not as different as that could be a blocker. Okay, so I would say that setting expectations and making sure that and having the will to accept that the other part works differently.
Thank you. So I have no other questions coming in at the moment. So if there are like more questions, I'm sure people can reach out on LinkedIn or maybe Twitter, if Andy will be happy to answer those. And as mentioned, the talk will be recorded and will be on YouTube later in the week. So thank you very much, Roy, for the fantastic
Thank you very much.
session. Next session will be at 1 p.m. UK time this afternoon. In this talk, Nomensa's own creative director, with Chris Richards, will talk about the style of experience design. So we've come to our session. Thank you all for joining. See you next session at 1 p.m. And if you haven't signed up yet, there's still time to do so by Eventbrite. Thank you very much for joining. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.